Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's session, which is a very exciting session. We have an AMA with 6 potential validators for the Vega network who've agreed to come and talk to us about validating in general on delegated proof-of-stake networks, about their experiences running validators and nodes, and also about the specific considerations that come into potentially being a validator on the Vega network. This is part of the kind of overall launch process for getting Vega to the first sort of mainnet release. We're in the process right now of evaluating validator candidates, as well as bringing Vega from incentivized testnet through to the first restricted mainnet release. You'll be able to see more information about that in a blog post coming soon, and you can also check out the recent community call recording to hear a bit of a sneak preview of some of the stages of that phase. So today we're going to talk about the validator process, how you become a validator, what it means, and what it sort of all the different considerations that validators take into account when running their services. So very, very excited to welcome 6 of these potential validators for the Vega network today. And to start off with, I will just ask the attendees to each introduce themselves and their and the teams that they represent. And then we'll dive in and start talking a little bit about the detail. So Sergio, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sergio, and I'm a founder of probably the largest testnet portal, Nodes Guru. We've got a huge community, huge chat community, and almost for every testnet, we've got a separate Russian community. Today, we're running more than 70 testnets and 10 mainnet validators, and we're happy to be here.
Awesome. Happy to have you as well, Sergio.
Thank you.
Next up, Florian.
Hey, everyone. Nice to be here. Yeah, my name is Florian. I'm the CTO and one of the founders of Staking Facilities, and we're a infrastructure provider from Munich, Germany. We currently validate on also like 10 plus networks, totaling a total of $800 million in assets. And yeah, we're really excited to see Vega coming live pretty soon.
Awesome. Definitely. We're super excited as well. It's a nerve-wracking but really exciting time to see what we've built get so close to coming to life. Radu.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me. I'm Radu Enoyo. I'm a co-founder and product manager at Viewer Labs. In a few words, Viewer Labs is a relatively new project in the crypto world, specializing in infrastructure and API offerings. We have a main product where we are building a platform designed to work as an interface between blockchain API consumers and full node providers. Basically, we're building a decentralized infra, so to speak. And also in terms of services, we are specialized in offering validator and public API hosting for some well-known and established projects out there. We have extensive experience with a validator based on Tendermint, with L1 and 2 blockchains, substrate blockchains, and so on. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. Max Legg.
Hey, thanks very much. Yeah, my name's Max. I'm from XPRV, co-founder. We're basically focused on big crypto projects. We started about sometime last year, and we recently delivered on a custodian solution with over 100,000 user wallets in management. And that's like a cloud-based solution. It's about high performance scale. And we've taken on many different projects as well before then, mining pools, NFTs. And we're currently focused on DeFi. We're looking at cross-chain DeFi products. We're actually building at the moment. We're not yet announced, but hopefully later in the year. And we're looking to, as a validator, integrate with Vega, because a lot of our users are really excited about all of the new features coming there. So.
Fantastic. Really excited to have you on the call. Hopefully, yeah, move forward with that. El Turco.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you just now.
Thank you for having me. I am Eltunko. I am running biggest Turkish testnet group in the Turkey. We are not only joining the testnet, but also we are teaching people to blockchain technology. Not only blockchain technology, but also the projects we are joining the testnet, because of this our people learning the blockchain technology, and they know how to send, for example, intended tokens, or how to validate, or how to delegate their tokens. And we are teaching them this technology. And now, before our group, 99 of our groups didn't know anything about, for example, Ubuntu. But now, thanks to our educational videos, they know a lot of things about now blockchain technology, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you for joining us, and really excited to have you on. I really love the the mission around education and helping people sort of join the community, and I think that's a really great thing to be doing. So welcome. And then finally, Thomas.
Hello, Thomas here from Rockaway Blockchain Fund. We are venture capital investors. We have invested in Vega in 2019. And as part of our strategy, we would like to not be just the investors, but part of the community. So we would like to help the projects also with running their nodes and to know it better. We are currently running a couple of Tendermint nodes and also Solana and Ethereum. And we are true fans of decentralization. So we are running our own hardware in multiple data centers, which are not the main data centers, for better decentralization.
Awesome. Welcome as well, Thomas. And great to hear that you're as big a fan of decentralization as we are. And certainly, some of what we'll talk about in this session will be about decentralization and how to run these decentralized networks in a good and secure way. So welcome everyone. I'm just going to now spend a couple of minutes sort of recapping the roadmap and the sort of validator selection and launch process for Vega for those people who may not be aware, or maybe the first time you've heard some of this. So I will just go through that a little bit so people kind of understand what's going on here and what this talk is part of, and then we'll dive into some questions for the validators. So yeah, the roadmap to mainnet for Vega sort of is a three-stage process. The first stage of that is the kind of mainnet initialization process, and really what that process is the process of bringing, with the community along for the ride, bringing Vega to kind of the point where it's ready to launch as a mainnet application. So we have the token sale that happened on CoinList as part of that in order to get tokens in the hands of the community. We have governance activities going on, including the selection of validators, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. With the community, we have a lot of developer and other community activity going on. We have the incentivized testnet process of testing Vega and making sure that the node software is ready to enter the mainnet. And then, finally, we have this kind of validator selection process where, openly with our community, we are discussing with many validators. I think there's around 50 now profiles up on the Vega forums, which are from various groups looking to be validators, whether they be community groups and DAOs, whether they're investors and VCs, or whether they're sort of professional staking and validator services. We have a lot of profiles there, and I encourage everyone to check out the forums and place comments and have discussions with validators and query them on their proposals. I think it's very healthy to do that stuff in public, and we're excited to see that that's all going on. And at the end of this process, what will happen is the Vega team, with the help of the input from the community, will effectively propose the initial validator set. That proposal will be put to a governance vote with the V1 token holders. So those token holders who held Vega tokens before the CoinList sale will be invited to vote as the kind of V1 early token holders and collaborators on that proposed set. And effectively, that will be the ratification from the community, from the early community of the first set, which sort of sets Vega on its way. The next milestone is the launch of the restricted mainnet. that mainnet will launch with the the approved validator set once that happens. And from that point on, Vega is kind of decentralized. So from that point on, the hands of the network are in the hands of the validators. That means that the validators will be free to make decisions around the network. They will be free to control and decide the validator set, to take new releases of code from the Vega team or from other places that they might come from. And then the network will evolve from there through the next phases. The expected next phase will be sort of as that restricted mainnet moves into a full mainnet. And the difference between those is that the restricted mainnet is about launching and getting live the decentralized network. It's about making sure the delegated proof of stake network is working, that validators are working and getting rewarded. Is the launch of the on-chain governance, which allows many parts of the Vega network to be controlled through governance votes from token holders. It's also the launch and this sort of testing of the ERC20 bridge that's used for depositing and withdrawing rewards and ERC20 tokens for trading in future. It's about the staking bridge and the staking and all of those things working. So that will happen over the sort of the weeks following the launch of that restricted mainnet. And as the community and the team get comfortable that the network is working well and that it is ready to go, we will then move into the sort of the final of the launch phases, which is the launch of the alpha mainnet. And the transition from restricted mainnet to alpha mainnet is driven by kind of sort of three groups. The Vega team sort of saying, yeah, we think that actually this is okay, and we're releasing a version of the software that will launch the alpha mainnet. It's driven by the validators saying, yeah, we're happy as well that that's ready to happen. And it's driven by the community through on-chain governance saying, yeah, we're also happy for trading to begin on the network, and we're comfortable for that to happen. The alpha mainnet then will allow the first creation of markets, the first creation of addition of new assets to the ERC20 bridge, and the first trading to happen. Initially, that happens with some limits on the network. So effectively, the amount of money that you can put at risk with a single public key, a single wallet, is going to be restricted initially to ensure that people understand that we're in an early alpha phase and don't take kind of unnecessarily high risks. Obviously, that can be open to kind of Sybil attacks, if you like, where someone can create many keys and put lots of money on. But the sort of view we have is that this is a decentralized network. We can't prevent that, and we don't really need to. If you decide to create lots of keys and put lots of money at risk, you better know what you're doing, because that's the reason for those early restrictions. So that will then sort of launch into the alpha mainnet, and then the community over time will vote to slowly lift the restrictions as we get comfortable. And then we'll kind of be in a live sort of normal mainnet scenario where we're working on building and growing Vega as a community together. So that's really just a quick recap of the process from now. Obviously, what we're focused on right now is getting that restricted mainnet launched with a set of decentralized validators, and particularly coming to a decision as a community and as a team around the validators that will be part of that initial launch. So with that in mind, time to start the conversation with the validators we've got here. The first question is a fairly broad one, but it's really something I'd love to get everyone's opinion on, which is running a validator node for a network is a serious undertaking. Running a sort of server that's up all the time and that's hitting the performance requirements. What in your mind makes for a good validator, and what makes for a good node operator on a decentralized network?
I can start.
Go for it.
Yeah, so basically with our services, we always run multi-region. That leads to some other issues about coordination, slashing, and so on. So managing those with the correct algorithms and services is fine. Also scaling. So one of our main platforms we use is Kubernetes, so everything can sort of scale with the load as such. Especially when it comes to running Tendermint, the Sentry Nodes, we can scale those should an attack happen. And obviously multi-region or co-location by integrating with cloud as well. So for us specifically, we will be looking at a managed sort of data center in a secure bunker to run these nodes. So we'll basically manage from there, and obviously in more than one region. So.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to add some thoughts?
Yeah. So maybe I totally agree here. One thing I would add is basically what makes a good node operator is someone who knows the software he's running not just knows if it's online or offline, but actually knows what the code is doing and how it's supposed to work. So it also depends on like how fast can you react, how fast can you debug what is wrong with your setup right now. That's one thing. And the other thing I think you mentioned in the question is running decentralized networks. So one thing, I think co-locations are the way to go. I think like multi-region and cloud has some other issues if you talk about decentralization. So that's something where we always run our validators on our own hardware. So we deploy our own bare metal servers. All keys are on hardware that we control ourselves. I think that is really important. And then also obviously understanding how to secure those servers that these keys or these validators don't get into the wrong hands.
Yeah, very crucial, very crucial. Great, thanks for the answer.
Yep, I completely agree with collocation policy. And also I think it's very important to monitor the network stats using at least Grafana, and to have a separate specialist dedicated to this exact validator like Vega, who will be in charge for this 24 hours.
Yeah, also I can agree with all said, and also add to have security protocols in place with how to handle the keys, how to handle some issues when you have to recover the keys, and to be sure that keys are not stolen and so on, like what may happen on Poly. So it's also really needed.
Absolutely. Thank you for that answer. And I think I saw Radu, maybe you unmuted there, and maybe that will take that one answer and then move on to the next question.
Yeah, I basically agree with all that was said here. We also have pretty much customized alerting system for each blockchain that we are operating, and we try to make automated deployments of the nodes. On top of everything that was said, we also believe in multi-region deployments and high-end cloud solutions for running our validators. Thanks.
Great. Thank you everyone for the answers there. So hopefully that's given our audience a bit of an idea of some of the important things that a validator needs to sort of do and needs to ensure when they're running a node successfully. And that leads on actually to my next question, which is thinking about the community. As a validator, you always benefit when the community delegates stake to you. Obviously, you receive some of the rewards for doing that, but also you receive sort of prestige and recognition in the community, and it helps to boost the profile of the validator. So it's obviously highly beneficial to have people delegating their stake to you. So how do you build that trust, and how do you get the community behind you, and how do you help to maximize the chance of the community delegating stake to you as a validator? What techniques do you use, or how do you think about that?
Can I answer this question?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I believe is best if you wanna run a best community, you have to be with them all the day. For example, in our group, we are talking every day, our people, not only about blockchain projects, but our lives, our, I don't know, about everything. And when I say something in our group, for example, this project will be very useful for us. Our people believe in me. Why? Because in every part of this discussion, people is knowing every day better. They know you like they accept you like your friends, and this is giving them a trust. And in our group, for example, if we join any testnet, people first asking me where is our main node, because we want to delegate all our testnet tokens to you. Why? Because people know that I am helping them without any expectations, and they are trusting me, and they also know we are never advising them bad project, because they know if we join a project, it has quality, because we have some criteria to join some project. For example, if they have their team, if they have their own, for example, their own chain, or they have good investors behind them. And we are every time we are giving these projects, we are offering these projects, and people also they are searching this project and seeing that we are never lying to them, and people trusting us for this reason, and without any questions they are every time asking where is our node and where we will delegate. I think this is my approach. Thank you very much.
Yeah, in tone with what my colleague just said, we also think that it's about transparency most of the time, keeping the community up to date with the decision of the validators and being fair about what mistakes have been done and how do you plan on fixing them if they happen. It's really important. And also I think it's important to have a certain portfolio behind so that community can start with a small amount of trust. Basically, but mostly I think transparency is the most important from a validator side.
Awesome, that's really nice to hear. Transparency I think is very important when it comes to anything to do with the community. I'm going to invite Posthuman, who I think has had their hand up for the longest, to come in and also add their perspective on how validators should work with the community and should maximize the chance of the community delegating stake to them. So over to you.
Yeah. Hello, friends. Thank you that you give possibility to speak to other validators too. It's very important. So the one point that it's missing out, it's about validating of the network and about competence between validators because of the delegators, and it's some kind of threat to the network, because when the validators try to concurrent between each other for the delegations, they stop to think about the interest of the network and stop to think about interest of the community. They began to think about their own interest, economical interess. So we think that the some cooperation between the validators, it's very important for the network and for the community. And the best way to work with the community is to involve the community in the to participate in the network, and that this community not only buy and sell and stake tokens, but also that community began to feel the network. It's something like their own project, because the network, it's the property not only of the team of developers, not only of the validators, but also of the community. And when the people from the community began to feel the network like the owners of the network, they began to try to do the best for the network. They began to live by the interest of the network. So to involve the people from the community to different initiative, to involve them to create some decentralized applications, or to create some designs, or make some articles, or organize some events, it's the best way to work with the community, because after it we will have a lot of benefits for the network, and also people from the community can find themselves in the decentralization, in the network activity, and it will be the best way from the web 2.0.
Great. Yeah, very great answer, very comprehensive answer there. And I totally agree. I think, validators have to play a role in the community, and it's important to see people taking on that role. So yeah, really great answer. Thank you. Anyone else from the panelists wanted to add anything else on this side of things before we move on to the next question?
Sure. I mean, in terms of community engagement, we've already been quite lucky in that we've spoken with several investors, early Vega investors. So we're looking at probably around several 100,000 tokens to start with. So hopefully from there we can then build out some confidence with the rest of the community.
Brilliant. That's great to hear, and I think it's great to see people acting in the community and getting in touch with both investors and other community members and people who participated in the CoinList sale and everyone really to build a great reputation. So let's move on now to security. I think a couple of people have already mentioned security, but some people in the audience and listening to this might not necessarily understand all of the concepts. So just for a couple, maybe two or three people here to give some idea about the implications of security when it comes to running a validator in crypto. I mean, what measures do you take to keep keys and nodes secure, and how do you ensure that that you operate sort of nodes that are secure, in the long-term sort of validating scenario?
I can start that one. Yeah, and in terms of custody, we've managed several projects with custody as a key part of that offering. I mean, the key skills we need for validation is ultimately slash protection. Obviously, I think Vega is not slashing to begin with. I don't know if you have plans to slash. Probably worth a comment there if you can.
No plans to use slashing at the moment. It's mostly the validator rewards in Vega are sort of based on a kind of more of a sort of performance bonus point of view. So effectively, if a validator is completely non-performing, they'll eventually receive nothing, but there's no plans for slashing.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and so it obviously reduces the risk massively. However, I think it's diligent to not be complacent with that. So it's worth protecting from the double signing, like you would do with the rest of Tendermint. Obviously, key rotation is another key part of that. So should ever something bad happen, or you need to move data centers and so on, this is like a key skill of validations.
Great, thanks. Anyone else got anything to add on security?
Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think one of the key elements is the physical security, to have it in a separate lockable rack, and also to have at least amount of keys on the servers, just only the bare minimum for the chain to work. Just for the Tendermint to just have the consensus key stored on some HSM, and all other keys should be outside the data center, ideally on some cold storage or notebook, which is not connected to the internet. That's our practice.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, maybe just adding to this real quick, I think it's easily summarizable if you just say like, have some best practices for key management in place. And especially, I think everyone here on this call, like every panelist is a company. So also inside a company, have clear access control management, know who has access to which key and why, be very strict about that. And then also, I mean, as we said before, like securing your server, there's always the threat of like a 0-day exploit or something like that, and someone getting into your server. And I think one of the best ways to prevent a critical event happening, like we saw with the Poly network right now, is to basically use hardware security modules wherever possible. And then as the last person here said, I think Thomas was it, to not have any keys you don't need on a hot node or like on a server connected to the internet. Don't have keys lying around that shouldn't be there. I think that's really important. And then maybe mentioning another point, I think this is the security of the validator itself. Thinking about the security of the network is something completely different. Like you have other threats there. So for example, multiple validators working together to try to cheat the network, or a single entity getting too many delegations to basically take over the network. That's really dangerous. And so I think this is a completely different topic of security, where we could probably spend hours talking about it. But yeah, just to make it short, like having ways to align your validators to the success of the network is here super important, I think.
Totally agree. And there's some really good points you raised there. And I think, we go a little bit beyond security, but worth touching on a couple of those things, and reminding everyone there's some blog posts on the Vega blog, blog.vega.xyz, which actually talk about beyond staking. There's, I think, a 3-part series on staking. And in that series, we actually go into some of the design of the validator reward mechanism, particularly around things like stopping anti-whaling, so to speak, stopping a validator just acquiring all the delegation. And in fact, if a validator starts to acquire too much delegation, they can actually, the amount of extra reward they get sort of reduces until there's a point where there's no benefit to them to having more stake delegated, and actually potentially even even like a detriment if a validator becomes too big. So there's a system sort of built in to Vega staking, and I really encourage you to read up some of the blog posts on that to see how we've addressed some of these issues. I know there's a couple of people in the comments talking about some additional points they wanted to raise on security, but we have limited time, so I'm going to move on now, and maybe we can revisit them if there's more time at the end. But now I want to talk a little bit about decentralization, because the other thing, again, related to the point about a validator requiring too much stake, there's also the idea that potentially there are lots of different ways a network cannot be sufficiently decentralized and can be vulnerable, and that could be to a small number of stakers kind of running a lot of networks, having a lot of delegation. It can be a lot of people running nodes in the same cloud providers data centers, or it can be all the nodes running in the same country or something like that. How do we think about decentralization, and how can a network ensure that it remains decentralized and sort of censorship resistant and free and open?
So first of all, for the other project that we ran, we create the so-called decentralization map. So using this, we can understand what are the main hosting providers they are using. For example, like we had in Solana, that most of the nodes were running by Hetzner. And this was not the case for decentralization. And the rewards for these guys who was running on Hetzner was reduced. So we talked with the team, and then this rewards was reduced. I think it's a good practice for decentralization.
Yeah, I agree. That sounds really, really helpful. And I think it's very good to have tools and metrics that help us understand some of those decentralization metrics.
I think for us, we're focusing on a high secure data center as our unique selling point and such. So hopefully that will take us away from, say, the Google and AWS deploys.
Great. That's also great to hear. I was just about to invite someone on to talk, but they have lowered their hand. So I guess maybe they don't have anything on this one. So let me invite Posthuman back, who's raised their hand again, just for a quick answer on decentralization.
Yes. Now we in such situations that the most of the networks are validated by the huge validators from the exchange or venture capitals, or it's cool validators that grew up from 1-2 persons, like P2P validator or Cosmos Station or Stakefish. But the situation, it's no more place for the small validators, individual validators. And individual validators have only several possibilities to participate in the network and bring the real decentralization to the networks. First, they can grow up like a P2P validator or Cosmos Station or Stakefish, add more people, and behind one validator will be a lot of people, and some part make technical part, some people make a humanitarian part, like working with community design and so on. But this is the way to the centralization, not to the decentralization. And we, with distributed validator think tanks, find a nice solution. We try to create something like decentralized autonomous synchronization of the individual validators who still keep their nodes, and every person look for the its own node, but we are helping to each other. So we try to cooperate with each other, but we are still separated validators from each other. So we can vote by different ways for the proposals or see different, but in the question of the security of the network and validating of the network, we always have a consensus. And this creates situation when many different validators still alive and validate networks, and it will prevent centralization.
Great, thank you for that point. I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, thank you everyone for the great answers there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to some of the questions, firstly from the forums that have been raised from the Vega community forums. And then also after that, we'll look at some of the ones that have come through on the chat and on the Q&A. So if you do have questions now, get them in the next few minutes, and we'll see if we can get to some of those as well. So the first question here for our validators is, what inclusive and transparent aspects could you have to ensure us as we move along? So real-time status updates, performance, what could you share in terms of metrics, and how would you communicate your sort of performance and your validating activities with the community?
For us, we will aim to publish summary information from Grafana. So that we'll hope to share that either publicly, or we can give that to on digests either through Discord or Telegram bots.
Hi, Luri, just inviting you on to see if you have an answer there as well.
Yep, I'm from Let's Note and team, and it's a good point to share some information. It's what we plan also as well. We plan to fetch some statistic from the node and also share with the people, either with Telegram or also by sharing the information from Telegraph or Grafana. So probably it's a good practice, but you have to think about this also. Thanks.
Great, thank you.
So from our side, we're planning to make the same thing as we did for different projects like Aleo and NIM. We'll have some kind of explorer for each node where everyone can see their statistics, missing blocks, etc., etc. And also some small network explorer like we did for NIM, including the list of validators, the decentralization map, the map of nodes, who are the version distribution, so which validator is on which version. Yeah, I think it will be important.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, really look forward to seeing some of these tools, and certainly I've seen some of the stuff that you guys have done for NIM and some of the things that exist for other networks, and I think it'll be great for the community to have that transparency. So moving on to the next question from our forums, a question from Marco Tor, which is, it's pretty easy to DDoS 13 IP addresses. So firstly, one of the question was, will the nodes grow number of nodes grow over time? Yes, the number of nodes will grow over time. We'll be measuring performance and checking how things go, but we would expect the number of nodes in the network to increase over time. But how do you approach dealing with the sort of the denial of service type attacks, and also maybe if cloud infrastructure might mitigate that problem because of the protection built into that infrastructure, is that a good solution? And how do you deal with the fact that you could then end up sort of centralized around a small number of cloud providers?
It's probably a question where you can answer. You don't have to necessarily only run bare metal or only run cloud, but you can use combinations of both of them. So in the Tendermint community and in multiple chains, there's this concept of Sentry Nodes, which are basically nodes that are not validators, but just like full nodes running in the network. And basically you have a bunch of them, and behind them you have your validator node, and your IP of your validator will never be publicly available to the network. So first of all, you wouldn't probably have these 13 IPs. You need to DDoS to basically bring down the validators, but you would have probably a few hundred IPs, and you would need to DDoS all of them in the beginning. And the more validators join, the more nodes there will be available. That's one thing. The other thing is, for example, if you use an HSM and you have access to multiple data centers, someone can DDoS your data center, and you just plug out your HSM, go over the street to the next data center, plug it in, and you're back online. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, if you have a industry-grade setup, you probably have some sort of DDoS mitigation available as well.
Awesome, very comprehensive answer. Thank you. It's really really exciting to hear. And yes, I've read a little bit about the Sentry Nodes myself and looked into it, and I certainly think that kind of thing is a very important part of the architecture of a sort of proof of stake network. So moving, sorry, anyone before we move on, anyone else who wanted to answer for that? I can see one hand up. Actually, I'll invite James on to discuss this as well.
Hello, thank you very much. Actually, so I'm the other half of XProof with Max. We're actually planning to use how Tezos actually secures their network from DDoS, even running dedicated hardware. So we actually plan to implement something called XDP, which is a way of allowing your network card to protect you from DDoS attacks. So although you will obviously have your standard hardware firewalls, each machine without much cost can also mitigate DDoS without touching the core processors. So you can't actually get into the machine without valid peer-to-peer messages. They get validated before they touch the main kernel of Linux. It's a really powerful technique that Tezos firewall has deployed very successfully, and we'd like to use that for our data centers. Very cool. That's something I hadn't heard of before, but sounds very, very promising and very cool. Thanks for sharing that with us. So now I'm going to move on to the last of the questions from the forum, and we do have a few in the chat as well after that. But the last one on the forum was, have any of you ever been approached by trading firms or other users of blockchains looking for either sort of research reports or actually direct advantages, kind of co-location, or asking and having people run like MEV type attacks? So have you ever sort of been part of that, or seen instances of people kind of trying to vie for position or for advantages in the system, perhaps taking advantage of MEV? And if you have, is that something that you might expect to happen on Vega?
Yeah, we haven't been yet, and I think it can happen because of the nature of the blockchain and type of transactions. And from my point of view, we are strongly against it.
For us, we're running focus groups with traders and fund managers. They really do like the tooling, especially with Wendy, of the deterministic ordering of the transactions. This is a really good innovation. I mean, probably a question for Barney, if there are any more innovations in the pipeline for this type of attack prevention. One of the probably key sort of centralization failures we see would be on the bridge. And I was just wondering what the plan is for the bridge, for sort of Vega core team, to see how we can sort of prevent any, let's say it's the poly network attack and a missing if statement causes a problem. What sort of mitigations are there, and what plans do you have going forward?
Yeah, good question, and I'll happily spend a couple of minutes on this. I mean, we don't have loads of time, so I won't go into too much detail. But in terms of preventions for the sort of those kind of attacks, obviously Wendy is the first part of that, and making sure that we have kind of fair access to the blockchain is very, very key. We're also looking at other ways to, things like including things like commit and reveal, and even sort of privacy type technology to enable sort of more randomization, make it more difficult for people to take advantage of stuff. But I actually think Wendy will go a long way to mitigating a lot of that. And then the other question was about the bridge. So the first thing to know about the Vega Bridge is that it is controlled by the validators. So there's no admin key. There's no opportunity for someone to get control with one key. The bridge is actually separated kind of into two pieces. There's the thing called multisig control, which is actually the smart contract, that the open source smart contract we create on Ethereum that allows the validators, the proof of stake validators, to effectively control the interactions with the bridge. And on Vega, that effectively means the Vega validators, and the validators will add and remove validators as they add and remove from the network, and that will be maintained on Ethereum. So that means that there's no one person who can do an action on the bridge. It actually requires a quorum of validators to sign it. And then the bridge contract is unbelievably simple. The bridge contract is basically just something you can send funds to, and the multi-sig control that's controlled by the validators can release the funds to another Ethereum address as long as it has a quorum of signed messages. So there's a sort of EC recover done to recover the signatures from the validators and check that we have a quorum, and that releases the funds. So hopefully those contracts are quite simple, and particularly the bridge contract is very simple. If an issue is found, it's actually possible to sort of suspend things and remove the control of the bridge and effectively migrate to a new version of the bridge with the appropriate sort of decentralized permission. So there are some ways to deal with problems if there is a bug found in the smart contract, but the other way is simply to keep things incredibly simple in terms of the bridge, to make sure they remain decentralized and controlled by the validators, and to make sure we have very, very good testing and audits. So yeah, good question on the bridge there. And probably going to move on now to some of the questions that I have seen in the chat. So let's have a look. Apologies, just looking through the chat to the questions that I found. So around Vega wallet funds, would it be possible to do some sort of network segmentation around this part of the node or the system, potentially even run that separately with a hardware HMS? Would need to have this key for people to do withdrawal. So that's one I can sort of answer a little bit, which is to say that this actually comes down to the bridge. Withdrawals and things are sort of validated by the quorum of validators on the network. I don't think you can really segregate that, but the funds are held obviously in the bridge contract on Ethereum. Just looking again to see what else is here. Someone's asked about IP whitelisting as well and network segmentation. The first two could be, so with respect to the node implementation of Vega, would it be possible to implement IP whitelisting and network segmentation? I guess that probably relates to the Sentry nodes and things like that, and how those things work. And I think that is possible using the Sentry nodes to effectively whitelist the communications between all the nodes on Vega, and then have the Sentry nodes be what the public sees, so that effectively the validators are only talking to each other, really. At what stage of the mainnet, someone's asked, will the validator set be opened up beyond the initial 13? That's a good question. There's two things that basically need to happen to do that. The first one is we need to have a successful launch with the initial 13, and we need to see that everything is working well and that the community is sort of ready to open it up. And then the second thing is around performance testing and sort of making sure that we have a sort of good communicated roadmap and that the network is going to continue performing well with larger numbers. So I'd expect the goal is to actually open up, probably between up to say 20 nodes fairly quickly. We'd like to invite more people in over time, and then sort of see how that affects performance and how the network works with sort of 15 to 20 nodes. And then from there, we would love to add more nodes, but we really need to continue testing and improving and iterating on the performance of the node and of Tendermint and see how that looks with larger numbers. So definitely hoping to sort of open up the numbers to more validators fairly quickly over time. The other thing that's also going to open up is the way validators are selected. So Vega is not intended to be kind of the team or anyone else selects validators like this for the long term. This is really sort of part of the progressive decentralization and part of the way to launch the network in a controlled way and make sure that we have a successful launch and we can manage things like security with a smaller set of validators. It's still decentralized, but it doesn't necessarily sort of allow for the chaos that can happen with a completely sort of decentralized voting system and delegation system. But that will change over the first sort of 6 to 12 months. The system will open up, and over time the number of validators as well as the selection of validators will be entirely driven by token holders and by governance. So effectively it will be your delegation and it'll be the amount of stake a validator has that eventually determines whether or not they're sort of part of the validator set, and it will be something that can be changed by on-chain governance by the token holders that sets the number of validators. So in the long term, we'll have that stuff all completely in the hands of the community and able to be controlled by the community. Probably going to have time for just sort of one more question for all the validators. Just one more question for all the validators, and then we will move on to wrapping up. I think Zach's just asked a question in the Q&A, which was, do you think decision which validators are delegated to will be deferred by token holders of projects like Lido and Mason networks? I don't know the answer to that, actually. I'll hand over to others in the group if anyone has an opinion on that, whether or not the delegation decisions will actually be deferred by token holders to some sort of third-party project, or whether you think token holders will make their own delegation decisions. Anyone have?
So maybe fair disclaimer, I'm one of the Lido Multisig holders, so I have a special interest here probably. But I think the decision will always be up to the community to make if they want to use such platforms or not. I think these platforms make it much more easier for certain people to manage their tokens, and especially having something like a liquid staking token, which you can trade or use as liquidity, for example, while staking and earning your staking rewards is very interesting. It would also be very interesting to the Vega community in the end. But in the end, it's the decision of every individual themselves if they want to use these solutions or if they rather delegate directly to a validator and support them. So it's up to the community.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that stuff sort of pans out. And I think it's probably very beneficial to have people delegate those kind of decisions to experts and to groups that are going to do a very good job. But you also have to worry, like with everything else, about the risks of perverse incentives and creating sort of vectors for centralization. So it'd be very interesting to see where all of that stuff goes. So yeah. Someone, again, just following up on the chat here, we see someone talking about messing with Vega is one thing, messing with assets pledged to the Vega chain is like a nuclear bomb for the project. Yeah, we totally agree. Like, actually, the system is designed with some fail-safes in some ways that we will be able to prevent things like withdrawals from the bridge under certain circumstances, controlled by the network and decentralized, but also with ways that sort of are potentially protecting safety in the network. And I think that's very, very important. One thing to mention actually about the Vega design for the staking bridge is a special bridge that actually doesn't use the same bridge as the ERC20 assets. In the ERC20 bridge, obviously you're putting your assets under the control of the network, and the network can, if you lose those in trading, then they can be sent to someone else. That does also mean if the bridge is corrupted, then you can lose those assets. The staking bridge doesn't work like that. The staking bridge doesn't put your tokens in control of anyone but you. So you actually stake your tokens on Ethereum with the staking bridge contract. The Vega network allows you to stake them, but you can only unstake them, and the network doesn't control who they own. So even if someone takes over all of the validators on the Vega network, even if all of our lovely validators here somehow get corrupted and taken over and by a bad actor, that bad actor still cannot acquire your Vega tokens off of you. Though your Vega tokens are still only able to be controlled by you. They can be unstaked by you, and they can be controlled and taken somewhere else. And so even in that scenario, the network could pop up again with you staking your tokens to a new set of validators who weren't bad actors. So that's part of the bridge design to that's designed to provide an additional layer of security thanks to the Ethereum network effectively, that makes it even harder for someone to long-term take over or corrupt the Vega network. So looking at the time now, I've only got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So what I would like to do is just sort of open up and ask if there's anyone who would like to add any final points from our validator group before I kind of bring things to a close.
Actually, thanks for inviting us. Was actually a good conversation.
Thank you for joining. While we do this, I'm just going to add a couple of people who have their hands up to the discussion as well, in case who'd like to add something. Oakin, you have been invited to talk. So if you'd like to add something you wanted to add, please feel free to. Okay, sounds like they may have gone. Added post-human, please keep it quick. We only have a minute or so left.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for possibility to speak. Very important moment, it's accidents. For example, in one of the chains that we are validate star name, one of the developer had heart attack. And after it, we understand that some accidents can happens with anybody of us. And it's important to have a multi-sig, because if only one person control the keys of the validator and he in the acid crash, a car crash or heart attack or something, nobody will have possibility to get the control of the node if he will die, and it could happen. And if we have multi-sig, in such a bad situation, we don't want to think about something really bad, but it sometimes happens. We, other people who are trusted, or for example, it can be the part of the team of developers or some other trusted validators who can have something like a multi-sig to get the access to the node of the person who is, for example, died in accident. And this is, I think, important moment, because no other possibility, only the multi-sig.
Agree. Thank you. Thank you. It's a good point. Very important that the validators that we have are running a system that is that's sort of robust and anti-fragile, and will continue to work even in the result in this sort of situation where something unexpected happens. With that, I want to bring this session to a bit of a close. We've sort of come up against the hour, and it was a fantastic discussion. Thank you everyone for joining and giving us your time. Thank you everyone for listening. It was really great for me to hear so many different opinions and bits of detail from some of the candidate validators for the Vega network. Just wanted to remind everyone that in the coming weeks, we'll be sort of concluding this process with the validators that have applied. We'll be looking to provide more details about that very soon. We will be running the V1 token holder governance approval process to finalize the set of validators, and we expect the network to launch in the restricted mainnet form in the not too distant future in the next few weeks. Again, there'll be more info on some of the blog posts and more details coming about that, probably pretty thick and fast now over the next couple of weeks. There should be quite a lot of announcements. And we're really looking forward to seeing the network come live. We're looking forward to seeing the ability for token holders to start staking and delegating and getting involved in governance decisions and the launch of Vega. And we're also looking forward to, at the beginning of next week, we'll be launching some more incentives on our incentivized testnet and booting that back up after a little bit of a hiatus for some updates to the core protocol itself. So we're bringing incentivized testnet back. Please look out for more details on that and be very excited to share some of that with you guys as well. And just to say, please join us in the Discord forums, Discord chat, sorry, or in the forums. Please get involved with the community. We'll be having testnet jam coming up on Thursday when you can hang out with the team and learn more about Vega as well. And thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.